Hey everybody, welcome back. Review a Day, episode number 201. My name is Leland and thanks for being here. If I haven't mentioned yet, episode number 51 of Dampercast is out. Craigslist dating game. We go over some direct-TV porn pics. So head over to dampercast.com and check out Dampercast. Also available on iTunes. Thought I'm getting some of the movies I haven't gotten a chance to review out of the way. And I think one of the more notable films that's come out that had a lot of people talking was Kick-Ass. And this is the new film from director Matthew Vaughn, who directed Layer Cake and Stardust. Love Layer Cake. I enjoyed Stardust, but Matthew Vaughn is definitely an interesting director who's kind of come out. He's worked with Guy Ritchie a good amount. This new film, Kick-Ass, we've got Aaron Johnson, Chloe Moretz, who was the annoying little sister in 500 Days of Summer. Nick Cage is in this movie playing Big Daddy, a kind of sociopathic father who raises his daughter to be a killing machine. It's the story of a guy named Dave Lazuski who kind of decides one day that no one has ever attempted to be a superhero. He doesn't understand why, with all of these comic books out, why no one has ever attempted it. He gets himself a scuba suit, he goes out, he gets his ass handed to him, breaks every bone in his body, and heals and ends up that he's gonna fight crime, meets Hit Girl and Big Daddy, and they end up kind of getting involved with a crime syndicate played by Mark Strong, this guy who heads up the mafia or the mob in New York City, and a kind of superhero film ensues. Here's what I'll say about Kick-Ass. As a whole, I don't think Kick-Ass works. I think it falls apart the more it exists. I do, however, think that there are things throughout Kick-Ass that really work and really show that Matthew Vaughn is a pretty talented director. I think this movie gets Hit Girl, Chloe Moretz, and Nick Cage. I think it gets Hit Girl and Big Daddy perfectly. And I think that's one of the few things about this movie that really works. The scene between Nicolas Cage and Chloe Moretz when he's shooting his daughter in the chest when she's wearing a bulletproof vest so she knows what it feels like to be shot in the chest. That scene is perfect. It is ridiculous. There is absolutely no reality to it. It's set in a completely fictitious world. And I think it says more about superheroes and kind of the reality of how fucked up that would be, more so than anything in this film does. That minute-and-a-half scene is funny. Nicolas Cage is awesome in this movie. When he dresses up as Big Daddy, he's doing this over-the-top Adam West impression that I was totally eating up. Hit Girl, if Chloe Moretz said cunt 12 times in this movie, I don't think it would have been enough for me. Because when those two were on screen, I fucking ate it up. When Hit Girl annihilates an entire room and it's set to the banana splits, or later on in the film towards the end when it's Bad Reputation, I was so down with that. I was having a blast with that stuff, and I think that totally works. What doesn't work for me though is, I think this movie, the premise of this movie is what would happen if a everyday person dressed up as a superhero. Unfortunately, this movie throws out reality within the first 15 to 20 minutes. This movie there is nothing real about it. And so it just doesn't deliver on that promise. And I don't think Matthew Vaughn was even necessarily attempting to do that, but there are characters in the movie saying, you know, why haven't people done this? What would happen if a real person did this? This movie doesn't answer this any more than Spider-Man did. I think this film also really wants to be a sort of anti-superhero film to kind of show how weird and fucked up superheroes really are. But what's weird about this movie is that it ends up being one of the more typical superhero films you'll ever see. If you cleaned up some of the F-bombs, changed some of these characters, you have a pretty passable Spider-Man screenplay. I mean, Dave Lazuski is Peter Parker with a chronic masturbation problem. I mean, he really is. And there's a girl in this movie who absolutely ends up being the Mary Jane. They have a conversation and they talk about how much their relationship means to each other, and then Kick-Ass realizes he has something to live for, and I just couldn't believe that the movie ended up going down this path, that at the end of the movie, they're standing on a rooftop at sunrise, which I did give Iron Man a positive review, but I don't think Iron Man ever pretends to be anything than a superhero film. Kick-Ass is nowhere near as edgy or different as anything you've seen. I'm surprised that so many people took offense to this film, because when compared to Watchmen or 300 or Sin City, I think it sits really comfortably with those films. It's surprising. You know, Aaron Johnson is an actor who's gotten a ton of buzz recently from some of his performances. He's not particularly very good here. I don't know if he's really given all that much to do. Clark Duke is a terrific comedic actor, and I don't think he's really given very much to do. And it was just so disappointing to me to see a film like Kick-Ass that wants to turn the superhero genre on its ass and do something different. And it really just didn't do that. And the ending of this movie, I've heard people kind of say that Matthew Vaughn has Tarantino'd the superhero genre, that at the end of this movie, there's just reference after reference to all these other movies. There's a Matrix reference, there's allusions to Asian horror films, and there's some spaghetti western, and it just feels like Matthew Vaughn was just referencing all of these movies for the sake of it. It doesn't become anything more. Like in a Tarantino movie, there's so many movie references in Inglourious Basterds. If you look online, you can just find reference after reference to these films. But I think the distinction is you don't need to know those references to appreciate them. There's so much great stuff going on in a Tarantino film. The ending of Inglourious Basterds, when there's that, you know, her face is on the smoke, it's not just a reference to The Wizard of Oz. It happens really organically, and he kind of is like a pop culture artist. You know, it's kind of like what Andy Warhol did. I heard someone on Film Spotting compare Tarantino to Andy Warhol, and I think it's completely true. Matthew Vaughn just seems to be referencing these movies for the sake of it, and I think it's too bad. Matthew Vaughn is an interesting director, and I think Kick-Ass is nowhere near as cool or edgy as it thinks it is. I don't think the movie works as a whole. I give Kick-Ass a 2.5 out of 5. I was bored by the end, and I was pretty let down. If you guys like this review, make sure to head over to nitpickit.com. Check out episode number 66 of the Nitpick It podcast. We discussed A Nightmare on Elm Street. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.